Welcome back to the You Can Too podcast. On today's show, we have James Altucher on the show. He is an entrepreneur, a best-selling author, a chess master, a comedian, a podcaster, and Business Week has recognized his book, Choose Yourself, as one of the top 12 business books of all time for damn good reason. James, for those who may not be aware of who you are, you have had so many different points in your life of different jobs that you've had, of different things that you've went into. I'd love to hear where it all started for you. Um, yeah, where did it all start for you? This whole journey of everything that of really what you've got into.
Uh, Gosh,
It's a loaded question.
that's a very broad question.
Yeah.
I have to go back to I I don't know. I mean, I started my first business in the mid '90s. At the time, nobody had made nobody was making websites. The web had just been this thing, and no companies had websites. And I had this feeling that many companies will eventually have websites. And at the time, I was working as a junior programmer analyst in HBO in the IT department. So I was like the lowest of the low there, and I had just been thrown out of graduate school, and this was the job that I got after that. And uh, and so I told HBO, you guys should make a website, and so they said yes. And who should we hire? And so I basically left HBO, started my own company, and told them they should hire me. More or less. It didn't quite happen in that order. I stayed at HBO for a while also and started my own company on the side and hired my own company to do the website. But there was no one else to build it. No one else knew how to build websites back then. There wasn't such a thing as WordPress or anything like that. And so I built this really fun website for HBO. One of the things I did was I told them, just like you have original TV shows, you should have original web shows. And so I pitched this show 3 a.m. where I would interview people at 3 in the morning about what you're up to, why you at it on a Tuesday night at 3 in the morning. And I did that, and other companies started asking me, hey, can you do something like that for us? So on the side, while I was still a full-time employee at HBO, I started doing websites for Warner Brothers, Sony, Miramax, Disney, all these gangster rap record labels. I did Bad Boy Records, Loud Records, Jive Records, Death Row Records. And, I built up my first company that way and then sold it. And because I didn't know anything about investing, anything about money, nothing, I quickly lost, over $10 million in a span of about 11 weeks. And it wasn't like I had cashed out. It wasn't like the stock went down and then that's how I lost it. I had like cashed out and then lost it. And and from there, I got really just sort of depressed, and I was losing my house. I was basically losing everything, losing my family, and I had to figure out a way to get out of this slump. And one way or the other, I gradually started getting out of the slump by doing lots of different things in life.
I love that your journey started, and I thought that was going to be the moment in time because you finished college in 3 years, and then you went to graduate school, and you got kicked out, and the whole story of how everything really transpired is truly profound. But you're someone that has really a lot of ideas, and you seem like someone that is there. Your mind's always going. It seems so. When you were in that time when you had the job at HBO and you were also building something on the side, what was it like building something for yourself at the time, and did you know that it was going to be something so monstrous to what you've been able to create to obviously now where you're at today?
Well, when you say building something for myself, I wasn't really like
of,
doing
of course.
doing your own, but like I considered myself. Let me back up. The reason I got thrown out of graduate school is because I was going to graduate school for computer science, but ultimately I really wanted to be a writer. Like I wanted to be a writer, and that's why I wanted to even work in the IT department at HBO. I wanted to make a TV show. So I always wanted to like do something fun that was really like an expression of myself. And so when I was doing my own company and building, like I would do the website for the movie The Matrix, it was for them. It wasn't
Yeah.
for me. And so I really actually did not enjoy business at all. I
Yeah.
hated it. Like I hated like kissing ass to clients, and and they could tell me do this, do that, because I had payroll to make after, at the time you couldn't like outsource a million things to other countries. I had to hire people and had rent to pay and salaries to pay, and I didn't have any money. So like I never took an investor. And, fortunately we were always profitable. We were always growing because the internet was growing. There were lots of websites to make. Like a lot of companies started to realize, oh, this thing might not be a fad. They still thought it might be, by the way. Like it was very unclear whether the internet was going to be a fad or not to most people, not to me at the time, but to most people. Up until about 10 years later, in like 2004, 2005, I still heard people saying, "Oh, this internet thing's a fad just for the kids or whatever." But uh but yeah, when I started doing stuff for my own company as opposed to being an employee, it was better in the sense that I was making more money, but I was working really hard. Like I was working all day at a full-time job and then all night for this business I had started, and it was really hard. And I was doing it for money. Like originally, when the World Wide Web was started, I thought this was going to be this new artistic medium. Like, oh, I could write stories using hypertext. Like, oh, I'm writing a story about this one character, but if you click on another character, you get another story. Like I thought that's what the web was going to be, this three-dimensional, you know, experience.
Yeah.
But it became a commercial environment extremely quickly, and that's where it is today.
Yeah. And I know that you, as you said a minute ago, is you lost 10 million so quick, and it's you've been through that journey many times. It seems like when you made a lot of money, you lost a lot of money, you made a lot of money, you lost a lot of money. And so you've taken on the mindset of someone that's really wealthy, but also someone that has almost no money in their bank, $143. So what do you think separates those that are wealthy to those that are poor?
I mean, I think of the things that I wish I had had at that point when I had a lot of money. I mean, I had like generational wealth. I would never have had to work again. And instead, I blew it and then had to start another company and then blew that and then had to start another company. Like I kept repeating this.
Hmm.
And it turned out like I was good at making money and having lots of ideas. But then there's three skills to money. There's making it, you know, keeping it, growing it. And I only had like the first skill.
Hmm.
Uh, so I wish there had been like a mentor to tell me like, oh, when you first make a lot of money, just do nothing. Just let, just do nothing for a year. Don't change your house. Don't invest it. Don't buy a new car or expensive things or a bunch of new clothes or whatever. Like just my problem was I tried to invest it and double it and triple it and quadruple it, but just do nothing. Let it like marinate in you for a while so that you know what to do with money. Money is like almost like a form of energy. You put a lot of work into something and then you convert it to energy, the work that you did. And that energy is money. And you kind of have to learn how to use that energy appropriately. And I didn't know that. So that's one thing I really wish I had. I wish I had someone in my life who could hold my hand and tell me what to do. But also, maybe I did have that person, but I wouldn't have listened because I was arrogant. I thought, oh, I made a lot of money. If I could make it here, I could make it anywhere, sort of feeling. So I thought I was too smart for my own good. And so it was definitely a very humbling experience. And again, not just once, but several times. And so I wish I'd maybe been a little bit more humble about the work I had put in and respected it a little bit more. So maybe those two things.
Yeah.
Really, the most important thing is do nothing when you make a lot of money
Yeah.
for a while, for at least a year.
Yeah, and that's a cool perspective to take on it because I think, and I'd love for you to dive into it. Is I think for most people the struggle is learning how to make money on their own. A lot of people are relying on a 9 to 5 job, and I think me and you have similar aspects or takes on what college looks like. And I'm a 19-year-old entrepreneur. I started my business when I was 17. Never stepped foot on college campus, and I don't ever
Excellent.
intend on doing so. And I'd love for you to dive into for those out there thinking that there's no way for me to make money. I don't understand even where to start on how to get on my journey into really creating any kind of wealth for myself. What do you say to those people that really don't even know where to start?
I would say I could guarantee you there's a million ways you can start.
Mhm,
If you just do a little bit of research, a tiny bit of research, and sell your first thing online. It doesn't matter what it is. Just sell your first thing. Like I don't know, make a make a stupid drawing and put it on a jacket and sell that jacket on Etsy, and just see what it takes to sell one thing, or provide a service. Like go to, I don't know, a local clothing store or a local dentist office and say, hey, for $100 a month, I'll do your Instagram account, and you can fire me or not pay me if you don't get more customers that month. And
mhm.
just do it. So sell a product, sell a service. Just get used to the idea of selling something and coming up with ideas for selling. Now, how do you come up with these ideas? Well, first you have to do a lot of reading. What are 100 ways people have made money online? There's thousands of ways people have made money online. So, but just list what 100 are, and you could do that by doing research. And then this is what I did: was I started writing every day 10 ideas a day, because people say ideas are a dime a dozen, execution is everything, but that's totally wrong. Execution needs execution ideas. Execution is a subset of coming up with ideas. Like, let's say I had an idea for a business right now. One execution idea is, oh, well, I could raise $5 million, hire a bunch of programmers, and make my idea. Another execution idea is, oh, I could, for a couple $1,000s, outsource the idea to some 10 programmers in India, and I can see if people like the first version of the idea. And then I could save the burden of raising millions if people don't like. Most ideas are bad ideas, so I could save myself the burden of raising millions of dollars. So those are two execution ideas. One was bad, one was maybe okay. But it's important to get good at just having lots of ideas. So after you do all the research on how to make money, and look, we could list right here ways to make money, but I think there's I always tell my own daughters, like, they hate their jobs. They're like waitresses in New York City. And I say, there's a million ways to make money online. And they're like, how? And I send them links. You could read these stories and then come up with your own ideas, or do the ideas in these stories. But,
Mhm.
you have to have some initiative also. But what I would do is I would every single day exercise my idea muscle, like write 10 ideas a day, not 10 good ideas, usually 10 horrible ideas. And, or 10 things I learned or whatever. Just come up with that habit of every single day, 10 ideas a day. And gradually you'll start having like one or two good ideas, and you'll start having a couple of execution ideas about how you could try different ideas out, and you get better and better at it. And that's what I always do to this day, to start new things or to try new things. And then
You are
you just always, when you need it, you just always have ideas on the fly.
yeah. Yeah, it is a muscle. It is such a muscle because if you don't continue to do it, you fall out of the habit of doing so, and it's a spiraling effect, and it is so profound that you've been able to do it so intentionally for so long, and the word that you said a minute ago is I actually can't even think of the word that you said. Initiative was the word that you said, and I think a lot of people don't think of taking initiative. They think of all of the reasons why they can't, and I know that in one of your books it was, I don't remember exactly which one it was, but taking the mindset of everyone that you look up to really is on the other side of can't. And I think that for you, you've been able to take initiative in everything that you've done in comedy and writing and in investing and really everything that you've been able to do. But I think that a lot of people have a lot of self doubt around if they're able to start a business, if they're able to have the capability to create a service or whatever that comes down to. So, what's allowed you to take initiative in almost everything that you do without really questioning the outcome, but just be so focused on the process?
I think being willing to fail at things is really important. Like, let's say I wanted to make the biggest TikTok channel in the world. All right. And so I start um, videotape myself doing some kind of dancing or whatever, and put it on TikTok. Okay, and then it gets no views or people don't like it. All right, I tried it and did it. Or we tried making this was like 4 or 5 years ago. We started a quote unquote book club on using Instagram Reels, and we did it. We got some like 10,000 views per thing, and it was fun. We had some fun videos. But okay, it wasn't really that, it was hard work and it wasn't really doing that well. So we stopped. You have to, like people say, oh, I'm not a quitter. Don't quit. I quit all the time.
Yeah.
And of course, sometimes you quit when you shouldn't, and sometimes you should quit earlier. But that's kind of a muscle as well. But you just have to be willing to try things and willing to quit and willing to fail. Sometimes, sometimes I'm afraid about releasing something because maybe people won't like it. I'll put in hard work and people won't like it, but people aren't going to like most things. So you just have to be willing to like try things and and let them fail. Now, again, a lot of people succeed by trying and trying and persistence and going through the persistence and getting better. Okay, and then they finally succeed at it. That's fine. I do it a different way. I like to try many things and see what works. And I only try things that I really love doing. I don't try things that I'm not going to enjoy because that's pointless. Because if it works, then I'm going to end up not enjoying something that I do for a long time. So, because maybe it makes money, but lots of things make money, we've already determined. So you might as well try lots of things that you love doing to see what clicks, really fast.
Absolutely. It's like if you want to be a writer and you don't enjoy writing, you're gonna take a long time to get yourself just to start writing, rather than the person that actually likes writing is they're gonna get right into it immediately, pretty much, right? It's like in every aspect of what you do, that's the kind of mindset you have to take on it, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I started writing, and for the first 3 or 4 years, no more than that, let's say for the first 5 years, I wrote 4 novels and dozens and dozens of short stories. And I sent every novel out to like 50 agents and every publishing company. And I sent every short story to every magazine out there. Nothing got published. Everything got rejected. Not even like a letter, just all form letters. Like I should have said to myself, I'm really bad at this. Like nobody likes anything I do, and not even enough to send me a nice letter. But I had a healthy degree of what's that, Dunning-Kruger bias, where I thought I was better than I was,
Yeah.
which was a common cognitive bias. And uh, fortunately, I stuck with it, and eventually, this is one of those things. I had persistence, and after 10 years, I finally had my first published piece of writing that I got paid for. I got $200 for an article I wrote. I guess you could say that this 3 a.m. project I did for HBO, that was writing. So that was like, okay, so it's like 5 years from when I first started writing that I finally got something that people wanted to see. And so that was a case where if you really love something, then you'll persist at it. But like stand-up comedy, going on, people say, oh, I do stand-up comedy. I went up on an open mic once. No, stand-up comedy is, for years, I was going up on stage 6 nights a week, sometimes 2, 3 shows a night. I was going all over the country, every club I could find. I even went to other countries and performed. And it takes years to get even like a little bit good at a hard skill like that. So you have to really love what you do. And you can't think about, well, I got to make money right away. The money is usually not there right away. But there are, like I said, there are many ways to make money online where you could balance time and money and not work as hard as, you could decide how much money you want. And then if you enjoy it, you can increase the hours of work, or you could work like 5 hours a week and then pursue other things that you're interested in. I usually fall into the latter category, where the things I'm interested in aren't necessarily going to make money right away, but ultimately writing became a huge source of income for me. Not because the books, I've written like over 20 books, not because the books did so great. I mean, some of them did very good, some of them did nothing. But, writing books and establishing myself as an expert via book writing and giving talks about the books and going on podcasts about the books, that gave me other opportunities. Like every opportunity is ultimately linked. So, I was initially a software guy. I went to graduate school for computer science, undergrad for computer science. I had to go to, once I had a job doing programming, I had to go to remedial classes to learn how to program after all that education. But uh, ultimately, when I started doing serious investing where I wasn't losing money, it's because I wrote software to help my investing. And that's how I really got my start professionally as an investor, investing other people's money. So ultimately, the things you really love and are interested in start to merge. Then I started writing about investing, and suddenly I was writing books about investing. And then finally, after 10 years of that, I started writing books about what I was really interested in, which was writing about myself and my own problems and my own hurdles that I've had to jump across.
Yeah. Yeah, and your journey I said earlier is profound to say the least because you've done so many different things, and the 10,000 experiment rule is something I want to dive into as well. And as you spoke about earlier, is you're someone that really doesn't like to put themselves in a narrow place where you're only focused on one thing. You like to really explore your curiosities and do a bunch of different things. I'm in the same boat where there has to be a point where you do quit on certain things because there's a point where sometimes staying committed is almost self-sabotage in a way because it's probably not serving you in some things. So how do you know when to quit certain things and actually go all in on other things?
Yeah, I think you can't really know for sure. Like, there's no super formula.
Right.
I mean, and that's the thing too. Like most things, people kind of want formulas for things.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying you, I'm just in general,
Of
people kind
course.
of want formulas for things. And there's no way to really know. Uh, but I would say if something, mo- and again, there are a lot of things that you start and you stick with and you build things and you build and build. And then suddenly you hit some tipping point and it goes crazy. But
Mhm.
most things aren't like that. Like most things, if they're not growing, it's probably not going to work.
Mhm.
Like if you start a website and there's no traffic, and 6 months later you build all these new things, you advertise everywhere, and there's still no traffic, chances are it's not going to work. So
Mhm.
you should quit. You get a sense like, but then you think to yourself, oh, I put all this money into it, or I put all this time into it. Should I quit now? What if tomorrow's the day that it really blows up?
Yeah.
You just can't know. But I would say you're right. You're wasting time focusing on something that is not growing when you should keep. You're going to have lots. If you get good at having ideas, if you write these 10 ideas a day down, and again, it's just a muscle. It's not like it's not like creativity is this inborn talent. You build it by writing down 10 ideas a day and trying creative things. But you'll have other ideas, and you should work on the other ideas. So, and there's lots of every new industry. There's lots of good ideas out there.
Yeah, it's that sunken cost fallacy that I think a lot of us get caught up in, and if we're not aware of it, it plays out in our life for a long time. That that
Like,
per-
one thing I will say though is that particularly this regards business. Like when I wish I had known a little bit more about the art of business when I started my first business,
Mhm.
because, and I'll just give you a very straightforward example. I had a service business. I would call up a company like Warner Brothers and say, "Hey, can I do your website for the movie The Matrix?" It wasn't as simple as that, but I was providing a service. They needed a website and I provided a service.
Mhm.
Along the way, because I was a software guy, I wrote software that helped me very easily make websites. It was kind of like a WordPress, 5 years before WordPress. And I wouldn't tell anybody about this software because I didn't want them to know, oh, this website that had thousands of pages took me 3 hours because I used software that I built. Well, guess what? A service business is usually valued at about 5 or 6 times earnings. A product business, as we learned during the internet boom, as we learn, throughout at the different booms and stuff, a product business is valued at like 1,000 times. It might not even have sales.
Yeah.
It's just valued, much differently than a service business is because it's more scalable. So I didn't know that. So maybe if I had known, because venture capitalists were calling me all the time, particularly at the tail end of my business when people realized this internet was a thing.
Mhm.
And so VCs were calling me all the time. And I'm like, I don't need it. I'm profitable. But at the end of the day, I did sell the business for millions of dollars but it was a multiple of earnings. Instead, if I was a product business, maybe I would have sold for 10 times that or 20 times that. Who knows? So you have to know what you have to know something about business. And that's like everything from valuation to negotiating to sales to how to take care of clients to how to find the right market. There's so many nuances to just business. And I feel like now I'm pretty good at it after doing this for 25 years or a little bit longer, but I've been involved in hundreds, maybe even thousands of businesses, if you count businesses I've studied and done due diligence on. So, but I wish I had known a little bit more in the beginning.
Yeah. Talking about that, because I know you talk about micro and macro skills, because I think that a lot of us see business as like this just business. We don't see sales, we don't see persuasion, we don't see negotiation, we don't see the fulfillment, we don't see all of the actual micro skills that are involved within that. What skill do you wish that you developed earlier, both macro and micro, that would have allowed you to, succeed maybe a little bit quicker?
Yeah, maybe in the business sense, business and investing are are initially macro skills that could be divided into micro skills that I wish I had known um, a little bit earlier. But you can't really know a macro skill by itself. Like you said, there's micro skills. So in order to be a good investor, you have to know not only what does investing even mean.
Yeah.
Is it do you buy what people say on Reddit or the Wall Street Journal, or like how do you know something's a good investment? So there's kind of like basic fundamentals to
Hmm.
that. Like, you know, everything in investing is an arbitrage. But if I were to explain the word arbitrage, it could fill, 20 books.
Yeah.
So, but that aside, there's also psychology of investing. There's position management. There's, risk. How much risk do you take for how much reward? Like there's really understanding risk versus reward. Um, there's how to diversify. There's how to monetize good investing skills. Like very few people make money from investing. They make money, like Warren Buffett didn't make money from investing as much as he made money from the business of investing.
Yeah.
Like he started a hedge fund where he got a percentage of profits. So he was good at raising money, and then he was good at investing, and the combination of the two allowed him to take huge fees and become a billionaire.
Mhm.
So, uh, uh, so there's lots of micro skills to investing. There's lots of micro skills to business. You're going to fail at business unless you're good at most of the micro skills. So, negotiating, sales, execution, uh, understanding what jobs and prospects might be profitable. Hiring is a micro skill, very important. You could hire bad people or you could hire good people. Let's say the world is filled with about 80% bad people, 20% good. You have to know who to hire. And then there's, in terms of partners, about 99% bad people, 1% good people. So you have to know who to partner with, and you have to know if you're a good partner, if you're one of the 99% or one of the 1%. And you're probably in the 99% until you get good at it. And uh, all of these things are very important. Comedy is a great example. Stand-up comedy. You have to be good at writing a joke. You
Mhm.
have to be good at telling a joke. You have to be good at dealing with the crowd. You have to be good at reading the crowd. You have to be good at, like, how do you use the stage to your benefit? How do you use your body? Like,
Mhm.
how Chris Rock, he's like a panther on the stage. He walks back and forth on the
Yeah.
stage. And you think that's just his style, but it's a very specific skill that he's developed where he moves just the right speed, where if you blink too much or if you look the other way, you'll miss him. You might miss the whole thing. And he knows that. He's developed that over 30 years and worked at it. Um, so there's a lot of people who write good jokes can't do stand up at all and have never tried because they're scared to death of it. Similarly, a lot of people who have great stage presence are not very funny. But if you combine the two, you have maybe a good comedian, but combined with all these other skills I mentioned, like crowd work is a lot more important than people think.
Mhm.
So comedy is another skill, another macro skill that's divided up into micro skills. Chess. A lot of people play chess. You have to be good at what's called tactics, like figuring out, white to move and win, those types of puzzles. You have to have a good memory. You have to be good at knowing what's called the end game, like just positional subtleties to win a very close game, and hundreds of other things. There's hundreds of micro skills that make up the macro skill of chess. So whenever you're interested in something, figure out what all those micro skills are and come up with a plan to get good at each micro skill separately.
Mhm. You speak about there's a quote that I love, and I think I speak on this a lot too, is your worst case scenario is that your experiment fails but you learn something. And
Yeah. So uh, uh, sorry to keep
no,
interrupting very
please,
quickly. I get
please,
excited. So
I get it.
view things you attempt as experiments. A lot of people say, "Oh, this is the best idea I've ever had." this is it. I'm gonna do this, and then they throw everything at it. That's fine, but try to view everything as an experiment first. So if a scientist has a theory about, medicine, like let's say they develop a new medicine.
Mhm.
Okay, it's a theory. It might work, it might not. They think it will work, otherwise they wouldn't have made it. But what they do is they try it on, mice. And do the mice live? Is it safe? Oh, did the mice get cured of the disease? Okay, now let's try it on human cells. Oh, now let's try it on. Um, okay, now it seems safe. Let's try it on humans just for safety, a little bit, and then a little bit more, and then let's see it now if there's a big enough dose where they cure their disease. So you do lots of experiments, and if the experiments don't work out, okay, no problem. We didn't waste $1 trillion trying to sell this. Let's move on to the next experiment. Same thing with everything I do. Oh, you want to write a book? Well, start writing the book. And just as an experiment, write the first chapter. Maybe let your wife or your friends read it, or post it as an article online. A lot of times I have an idea for a book, but I don't know if the idea will be good. So I'll write an article. Like I wrote a book called The Power of No. It's how I was always bad at saying no. And here's how I learned how to say no to people. And I wrote an article, The Power of No, and I put it in my usual spots. And it was more popular than my average article. Let's say it was 5 times as popular as my average article. So I had said to myself, oh, okay, that was a good experiment. This is worth writing a book about. People are clearly interested, whether they're interested in the title or the content, I don't really know yet, but they're clearly interested in this topic. So now I can do more. I can maybe pitch this as a book and see if I can make money, and see if I could write a good book, and so on. So just little experiments are always a great way. Oh, you have an idea of I had a friend who had an idea of automatically editing people's funeral videos.
Mhm.
So like someone dies, they make a video of the person and show it at the funeral, and everybody cries and so on. So my friend had a way of taking all these videos from social media about the person, and it automatically makes the video. And she was going to raise $2 million to do this business so she could do it. And I said, why don't you, since you're a videographer, why don't you just do this as a service for a friend of yours? See what effort is involved. See if you like doing it. See if your friend would be willing to pay for such a thing. And that's an experiment. And she could have just done that instead of raising $2 million, and then the whole thing failed. So, experiment. When I was doing stand-up comedy, I had a hard time with like one-liner jokes, like really quick jokes.
Mhm.
So I did an experiment. I went on a New York subway in rush hour, like people are coming home from work, not an audience that is wants to hear
Not at
me
all.
tell jokes. And every stop, I would switch cars, and then I'd get on the new car and I would start telling jokes. So I got over a lot of stage fright then, and I got better. It's just an experiment, but I got better at telling like quick one-liner jokes. So, and what sorts of jokes work in a tense kind of audience. So experiment, and then I went further. I said, oh, this was kind of fun. So just like a late night show has the late night host does some stand up in the beginning, and then they bring on a guest, and then they have a musical guest. So I figured, oh, okay, well, this could be like a late night show format, but in a subway. So I did an experiment. I put together a video of the stand up, and then I brought on a celebrity guest and interviewed him on the subway ride, and we even interacted with other people on the subway. And then in the subway, there was a guy who was busking on, like hitting trash cans and making music. He was very good. And so he had him as the musical guest. And I put together the whole video and I sent it to an agent, and the agent said no. And that was like the only word he said. So, okay, it was an experiment that was fun. Could have been something, and it wasn't.
Yeah, and you learned something from it, right? Like you
Totally learned like a ton of things.
you you
So
you got better from it, and you also, when you were starting to do stand up, like you would go, and when people were afraid to go, like after people, like you were the person, you were raising your hand to go right after Tracy Morgan and all the other greats. Like I think a lot of people are afraid to put themselves out there, but you do it so well, and in so many different ways and so many different variables. How have you been able to really, and I don't know if you've been able to do this, or really anyone's able to do this, but and especially in creative fields, like really detach your self-worth with the output of what you're doing almost.
Because everything is about getting better, and you can't get better if you can't get to be a better runner if you stand in place. So you have to run, and you have to run a little harder each time. And so, like, yeah, comedy is a good example where, okay, Bill Burr was on one night, and they gave me the choice: do you want to go before Bill Burr? People won't even know Bill Burr's coming because he's going to surprise.
Yeah.
He's a big comedian. He sells out Madison Square Garden. Or Tracy Morgan also the same thing. You want to go after Bill Burr or before Bill Burr? So the hardest spot would be to go right after Bill
Sure.
Burr because everyone's saying, "Oh my God, I just saw Bill Burr or Jerry Seinfeld or Jim Gaffigan," and then who's this guy? And and that's how when you push into that fear, then you stop being afraid, and you get really good at going after really hard guests, while other people just stay afraid forever and they never break out of that box. And it's the same thing for every skill you're trying to get better at. There's going to be some things that you're going to be really afraid of, like public speaking or selling your company, and or firing somebody. And you have to get good at all these, again, micro skills, and going past your fear. And it is really scary to be the one to go up right out. I remember, this is not me, but at one time I saw a set where it was Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, and Louis C.K. all surprised at this comedy club called the Comedy Cellar in New York City. They all showed up on the same hour, so they all went up, and then um, this fourth guy, Lenny something, goes up, and he's like, "Yeah, that's right. None of you know who I am, you know." And he goes to some guy in the front, and he's like, how would you feel if, like, Steve Carell came up to you in your office and said, "Get the hell out of here, I'm taking over." You feel intimidated. So, uh, you again, going past those fears, or like in chess, if I have to play someone who's much better than me in every possible way, I'm
Mhm.
scared. But I'm going to play this game. I'm not going to waste my time. I have to put up my best effort. And sometimes those are the very best games I've ever played because I put in so much effort into those. Uh, it feels good whether I win or lose.
Yeah. Have you always have you always had that mindset? Because it seems like, like I said, in every facet of life that you've went into, whether it's comedy or writing books or investing or just in everything that you've done, you've been able to really just put yourself out there and and just be the one to raise your hand and just put stuff out and really be open to criticism, be open to putting yourself out there. Have you always had that mindset, or when did that shift for you?
I don't really know. I feel like I've had it for a long time because I instinctively know when someone asks me to do something and I feel afraid,
You
I
have to do it.
like if I feel bored, I won't do it.
Yeah.
But if I feel afraid, then at first I'll say to myself, okay, I'm not doing that. But then I say to myself, okay, because I feel this way,
Mhm.
now I have to do it.
Yeah.
Uh, I was on a podcast a few weeks ago. A friend of mine was doing the podcast, and asked me, um, uh, I was kind of putting myself down a little bit, and he said, "No, no, you should ask your friends, to tell you why you're awesome." And I said, "There's no way I'm going to do that." And he's like, "Aha, I got you. You just said you're afraid to do that.
Yeah.
Now you have to do it."
Mhm.
So he said, when the podcast comes out, you're going to have to do that. And the podcast just came out, but he hasn't reminded me, so I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. But again, it's when I feel afraid to do something, then I know to make myself. I know that on the other side of me saying I can't do this, if I do it, I'll be a better person for it.
Yeah, and I tuned into that podcast, so you definitely need to be doing
Yeah,
that.
he
And
hasn't reminded me though, and so I've been delaying it.
yeah, I mean, in everything that you do, you really do seem to be the kind of person that puts himself out there, though, and I admire you a lot for that, and I think a lot of people have a tough time because it's funny that when whether you're putting something out into the world, you don't put it out unless there is some kind of discomfort or you feel like you're putting something new out into the world. I feel like for most people, it's kind of like the opposite. It's like I'm not going to do this because I feel the fear or because I feel the stress of what that looks like. And outside of the 10,000 experiment rule, you have this idea of plus minus equals, and I love that idea because I think that having that kind of perspective on life will help us excel so much faster in whatever facet of life that we're trying to really move forward in. So do you mind like breaking down what that looks like?
Sure. Yeah. So for and this actually was told to me. This concept of plus minus equals was told to me by a guy named Frank Shamrock, who for about 7 or 8 years in a row was the world MMA champion. This is like in the early OOs, and it's because in MMA you can't just learn how to fight. Like you can't just learn how to box, or you can't just learn jujitsu or whatever. You have to learn like a whole bunch of martial arts.
Hmm.
So he said for every, and you have to learn them very quickly. So for every new martial art that he would have to learn, he would find a plus, which is like a coach who could teach him. Then he would find equals, so people who were also at the same level as him, that they could spar with each other and exchange notes and move up together. And then he would find a minus, like someone to teach, because if you can't explain something simply then to someone who's learning, then you don't truly understand it. So for instance, when I decided about a year or so ago, oh, I'm gonna get back into competitive chess. Like I was a chess master 25 years ago, and then I stopped playing, but I'm going to get back into it. I got excited. So I knew what to do. I got myself a coach. I also called up students I used to teach 25 years ago and said, hey, do you want some lessons? And I also found equals. Like I would go to tournaments, see who was at my level, and ask people if they want to be, sparring partners with me, or, we would all ride to tournaments together and exchange notes and so on. And it's been working out. It's very, very hard, but it's been working out very well so far. Same thing with poker. Like when I was playing poker for a little bit, I would do that, and I encourage other people to do that. For everything you do, find that plus minus equal. I also want to mention something too about sharing ideas. Like a lot of times this happens. People will come up with ideas and they'll tell you, but they're like, don't tell anybody. I don't want anybody else to do this idea. No one else is going to do your idea ever. That's never, ever going to happen. And if they do, and they do it better than you, then that's fine. And if they do, and they do it worse than you, that's fine too. And if they do the idea, but you never did it, that's fine also. So like the other day, someone was telling me a business that a famous celebrity is working on. And it immediately occurred to me, there's one thing they could have done better.
Hmm.
And I was with a friend of mine, but I started explaining to this celebrity's CEO of this business this way to very simply make the idea much, much larger and better. And she wasn't really understanding. And my friend kept like hitting me. And like later I said to my friend, why'd you keep hitting me? And he was like, let's just do that idea ourselves. Like, why are you sharing the idea?
Yeah.
And like, it just doesn't matter. Like, A, we're probably never going to do the idea. B, the celebrities person didn't really understand what I was saying anyway. And even if she did, let them do the idea. It'd be great. But I find when I share lots of ideas, that's the way I get opportunities. Like, so for instance, recently some company wanted me to be on the board of directors of their company. It's a public company. And I said, sure. But my price was a little too high. Like I didn't want cash. I wanted, because I believed in the company, I wanted equity,
Hmm.
and it was a little too high for them. And I said, no problem. Here's what I would have done anyway on the board. Here's 10 ideas you should do. And they were like, wow, this is great. Can we pay you as an advisor even? And so, we're working it out now. Like, as if you keep sharing ideas, that's what creates, like, give every idea away. That's what creates, huge opportunity.
Yeah, you're someone that has a really abundance mindset, and when you were creating ideas, 10 ideas a day, whether it was for you or for other people, it's how you got invited to Google and LinkedIn and all these other places because you provided value to other people. And when you provide value to other people, it's like I don't remember who said it, but it's like you're gonna get what you want in life by helping enough other people get what they want in their life, right? And you having
Yeah,
that,
that's,
go ahead.
go ahead.
You having that mindset that there's an abundance of ideas that no matter what happens, I mean, you should share the idea that's what served you to create more opportunities in your life, really.
Yeah, and what's great is very few people think like that. Like people think,
Exactly.
oh, I'm only gonna have like a couple of good ideas in life. So when I find a good idea, I should run with it, or else everyone else will do it
Yeah.
who I tell, and then they'll get rich and I won't. It's just not true. That is a mythology that never actually is true in practice, or very rarely. And yeah, I've had people run with ideas of mine, and you just, again, you just move on, because you never know, 10 years later I might have an opportunity with that same person and it works out this time for me. Or again, like I said, maybe I never would have done the idea anyway, so at least it gets into the world. But it's the process of giving away ideas, like having that abundance mentality, that people really grow to, like, say, hey, it didn't work out business wise with this person, but he's still giving us free ideas for nothing, for no reason.
Mhm.
And they learn to trust you through that, and know that if they do work some business with you, or much later on, they might be talking to someone and say, you know who you should talk to, this guy James, he gave me some ideas that really worked for my business, and maybe something works out with you and him. So it's I always call this the Google technique, because Google's entire business model is based on how quickly people leave their website. So, like, if I go to Google and say, tell me about motorcycles, Google will say, I don't know anything about motorcycles, but here are 10 websites that you should go to that know more about, motorcycles than google.com does.
Yeah.
But then the next time I want to learn about something, say I want to learn about, repairing my car or repairing my house, I go to Google.
Yeah.
So Google gets my return business because they helped me so quickly for
I
free, it seems.
That is really, really true. I never really thought of it like that. And I think, like I said a minute ago, I think for a lot of people that abundance mindset's something hard to grasp onto. And for you, being able to go from really, 10 million to $143 in your bank to going for 2 years living out of, like, having really nothing with you, like, how have you been able to really keep that abundance mindset? And for those that maybe have grown up with a scarcity mindset, how do you really turn over to an abundance mindset and sustain that for a long period of time?
I think it's hard because, for one thing, when let's say you lose all your money, you're not going to be like, oh wow, failure is a prelude to success, so I'm
Yeah.
about to succeed, this must mean. No, you usually are. Like, I was really depressed, and not just once, again, like every time this happened to me. And I hate to say you get better at it, about being depressed, because it just sucks to be depressed. But and to feel like, oh my gosh, like I just won the lottery and then I blew it all, I'm never going to win the lottery again. Like, you lose confidence, you get depressed, and over time you realize, oh, but this has happened to a lot of people, and it's even happened to me before. So I know I could bounce back from this. And then you start looking for opportunities. So, like when you buy a Toyota, suddenly you start seeing Toyotas all over the road. It's the
Mhm.
same thing. When you start looking for opportunities, you start to see them everywhere. And but it's hard to kind of bounce back from that. You kind of have to just tell yourself, okay, this happens to a lot of people. you know, Men make plans and God laughs, is the saying. And now I'm just going to start from scratch and start coming up with ideas again, start making calls, start having lunches, start having dinners, like expand my network.
Mhm.
Like, I'm a shy, introverted person, and somehow I have a network because I've given ideas to a lot of people. I write to a lot of people. I'll meet people on Zoom, like, hey, let's just meet and bounce ideas off each other and see what happens. And you just get into these success habits. I guess there's a bunch of success habits where, uh, we mentioned some, like when you're learning something, micro skills and plus
Mhm.
minus equal and so on, writing 10 ideas a day. But then there's habits too of, like, okay, let's reach out to this person who's a good person who I once did a deal with a long
Yeah.
time ago, see what's going on. Let's reach out to these other people. Um, let's start eating well, sleeping well, exercising, so we have the energy to succeed. You can't succeed if you're sick in bed. You could succeed if you have a lot of energy and a lot of stamina, and exercise releases, helps things like depression. Let's connect emotion. Let's have a good emotional foundation. So let's make sure our partners, our friends, our kids we have good relationships to the people we love. Um, Again, let's get into the habit of ideas, and there's also a spiritual aspect to it too. Like, I see the Four Agreements on your shelf there. That's a great book. I've had the guy on my podcast, on whatever, Miguel Ruiz,
Yeah, trying to
uh,
remember mine.
and uh, you get into, by spiritual, it means you can't control things that are uncontrollable, and people spend a lot of time feeling anxious or afraid about things they can't control, instead of every day really taking control of the things they can control. Like if I want to write a book, I can't be afraid of if nobody will like it, but I can write a few pages today. So that's what I should do. And it takes an hour. And then I have another hour like, okay, I'm not really good at reaching out to people, but I'm going to reach out to this venture capitalist I did a deal with 12 years ago and just say hello and see what's going on. And who knows, something might happen. And again, just trying to do these things, throughout the day. It doesn't have to be all day, but throughout the day. And anytime I feel myself slipping into depression during one of these periods, okay, now it's time to write 10 ideas a day or make a call. Like doing is better than thinking,
Hmm.
is better than being scared. So as long as you're doing things, you're never going to be that scared because you're busy doing things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of our lack of confidence comes from when we say we want to do something and we don't do it. Right? Is when our
Yeah.
it's when our do to say ratio is out of alignment. And with you being someone that's pivoted in so many different directions and has your hands in so many different buckets, like you seem to have like an aversion to setting goals almost. What is your mindset on setting goals? Do you think long term, or is it just kind of like week by week, day by day? How does that play out for you?
I think it's more week by week, day by day, because again, goals are uncontrollable, whether you're going to meet a goal or not.
Mhm.
Uh, I might invest in a company, and my goal is in 2 years, the company doubles in value.
Yeah.
Well, I have no control over that. Maybe there's a pandemic that happens. Like I have one company I'm invested in that was all scheduled to IPO in mid 2020. And then there was a pandemic and there were no IPOs, and I'm still waiting for them to IPO. So
Yeah.
if my whole life depended on a goal of them IPOing, I would have had a very scary life the past few years.
Yeah.
So, um, but I think having somewhat of a goal is important because then that points you in a direction.
Hmm.
Like for instance, let's say I have a goal of getting better at tennis.
Hmm.
I'm just making this up. I
Yeah.
don't have that goal. But okay, I might not get I might not be the best tennis player among my local neighborhood tennis friends, but I can get a tennis coach. I can get my plus minus equal. I can get a tennis coach. I could play tennis with equals. I could teach my kids tennis. I could watch videos about tennis. I could get a ball machine and practice hitting or practice serving. So I can do things because I have a direction. Maybe direction's a better word than goal.
Yeah.
I may never hit the goal. I may never even get better at tennis at all, but I'll probably get healthier. I'll develop some discipline and some routines. I probably get a little better at tennis. Um, it's tricky. Like I have a situation right now where I'm writing a book, or I'd like to write a book about the concept of going on quests.
Hmm.
So if you think about the classic quest in literature, King Arthur and his knights went for the Holy Grail. I don't think they ever found the Holy Grail, but like the whole body of literature about King Arthur is him on a quest for this Holy Grail. And and I find that most of the things that have led to great success in my life have been around this concept of a quest. Like when I was building HBO's website, I wanted to find out what people were up to at 3 in the morning in New York City. So I made that part of the website, and this quest led to me starting a company for building websites for entertainment companies, and then selling that and putting me on a whole journey. Or, I got uh, fascinated with investing, and so I went on this quest to be a better investor, and that led to huge outcomes for me. And so right now, I've been on this quest of like, okay, I want to have as high a ranking in chess now that I had in 1997 when I was a first ranked chess master, and and I feel like I need to wait to write the book until I hit that goal.
Hmm.
I'm on a quest for it, and I've learned so much, and I've traveled all over the world now. I had dinner with the world chess champion a few weeks ago. I've had so many different adventures in this quest that have helped me in other ways. But now, do I have to wait until I hit this specific ranking, or will it be a fulfilling book for people if I don't hit that goal? I don't really know. So like many answers, it's ambiguous about, do you go for a goal or is it the journey?
Hmm.
It's a little bit of both.
Yeah, I see goals as, and I'm with you on that. Where I think goals are like the direction aspect of like goals are guidelines. They're the the thing that helps you keep you in the direction of where you want to go, but it's not the attachment to it. It's more so just the direction in itself, and the daily practice, like you talk about, is what we're focused on. Is just every single day being in movement is the thing that we can enjoy, and you obviously, like you said earlier, is like making it fun and finding something that you actually enjoy so that you can actually sustain it long term. And because if you're not doing something you enjoy, then what's the whole purpose of doing it to begin with, right?
Yeah, like a lot of times, like taking investing or starting a business. A lot of people say, "Oh, I'm going to build this. I'm going to sell it for $100 million." Well, what if someone offers you 5 million for it,
Yeah.
and that, let's say you own half of it, so it's $2.5 million to you. Maybe you should take that and use that $2.5 million to start a new business without the financial stress of having no money while trying to build $100 million business. So again, because your initial thinking was, "Oh, I'm going to build this to $100 million business," you were able to build a business. But then, like you say, it's every day focusing on what you can do today. It doesn't mean taking every offer, but at least today starts a new day where all the old goals are off, all the past is gone, and now I just have to, is the path correct that I'm on? Is the direction okay? Well, what do I do today to move forward in that direction, and so on.
How do you measure your success in your creative pursuits or just in a day-to-day basis? Because I think especially as entrepreneurs, you get to the end of the day, it's up to you to really decide if today was a good day, if today was a great day, if today was an okay day. How do you decide if it was a great day for you, or like how has your idea of what success looks like changed throughout your life even?
Yeah, it's really interesting because let's say you're a day trader. Um, there's so many different ways you can look at success as a day trader.
Yeah.
One is, at the end of the day, did I make money? If I did, was that a success? It sounds like it's a success. But what if the way I made money was I took an irresponsible risk? Like I bet all my money on Microsoft having a good earnings report, and they did, and I made money. Was that a success?
Mhm.
No, that would be a huge, huge failure, actually. And so no matter how you judge, no matter what metrics you use to judge success, you have to be very careful that there's more than one metric. So it's not just money that determines a successful day. Did I also do my best? Did I also make good decisions in all of the areas you need to make good decisions to be a good investor? Not only was the investment idea good, did I manage my risk good, and psychology good, and so on. Um, or comedy. Like one time, and that's why it's good to view things as an experiment. So one time I had an idea for a comedy bit where it was really more like, and this is going to sound odd, it was really more like a clown bit. So
Mhm.
a clown is a professional thing, like not just a circus clown. It's people go to school for clowning.
Mhm.
And that's like when you see like people riding like the huge bicycles or walking on stilts or juggling 20 balls or whatever. These are like tricks. So I had this idea I wanted to do on stage for stand up, where I was going to play the music for this really complicated piano song, but I was gonna sit at the air piano. Like I would pretend I was sitting, there was no chair, and then I would play and hit all the right notes and chords. You could tell I was playing along with the music, but just an air piano. There was no real piano there. And I did it. I practiced for weeks. I did it really well, and nobody laughed at all. They had, "What the hell is this guy doing?" And so, okay, I did it. That was an experiment, and I successfully did it. There was nothing I did wrong. I know I had practice in front of the mirror. Like I knew what I was doing, but it didn't work in terms of like getting people to laugh.
Yeah.
Was it a success? Was it a failure? I don't know. Aspects of it were successful, aspects of it were failure. You just have to keep this experiment mindset. And again, it's hard though sometimes. Like if you're trying to get better at tennis and you play tennis with your neighbor and he crushes you when you've been working so hard and he hasn't been working and you feel like you should have won,
Yeah.
and he starts bragging about it to your face, like that feels really bad too. Even if it might have been, even if everything you did was success oriented, you did all the right things, just whatever, he was better than you that day. So success is a hard thing to judge. So you have to really be happy with what you yourself are doing. Like if I'm being creative, did I output creative pages today, or did I try my best?
Mhm.
Um, but you do need some kind of goals. Like ultimately, if you're writing a book, you can't just feel good every day.
Yeah.
You have to just keep moving forward and writing the book too. and you have to deliver the book on the deadline, and you have to have sales for your business because you have employees to feed. And so success sometimes has metrics, but very much it's about half. Do I feel good myself about what am I doing? Am I doing my best? But you have to be good enough to achieve some metrics to move forward, or else you should quit.
Hmm. Yeah, and you are someone. It's so profound just hearing you speak about this kind of stuff because I think it's especially again as an entrepreneur. Like you said earlier, it's like you can be in whether you're writing a blog or you have a podcast or whatever it comes down to. Like if something's not growing day after day, and it may take a long time for you to see the growth. I always talk about it like it's invisible growth until it isn't invisible, and
Right.
you have to show up and show up and show up. And sometimes the days when it feels invisible. Is it still success? And I think that what you said there, it's like you have to feel good within yourself for it to feel good in any day, really, right? So you speak about so much in Choose Yourself, and I love that book. It was really a profound book,
Oh,
and
thank you.
just your work in general. I define you as successful, and I think that you would define yourself as successful with everything that you've done as well. But from the external perspective, your mindset has such a profound impact on it. You can see the work ethic that you have. But what are some of the less obvious reasons that you've been able to find success?
Uh, Obviously there's a luck factor, but you create. People say you create your luck. You don't create all your luck, but you create the potential for luck.
Hmm.
So, for instance, if you live in, not so much anymore, but let's say 10 years ago, 15 years or 20 years ago, you moved from Akron, Ohio to Silicon Valley.
Yeah,
You nothing wrong with Akron, Ohio, but you just increased the
surface area.
surface area of the size of your luck
Hmm.
potential. So you're more likely to be in the first round of Uber, where every $1,000 invested in the first round of Uber turned into 5 million. You're more likely to do that if you're living in San Francisco than if you're living in Akron, Ohio. So it's not. I'm just using geography as
Of
an
course.
example, but there are a lot of ways to increase the surface area of your luck potential. And so that's really important. So I went to graduate school in Pittsburgh and lived there after I was thrown out of graduate school. But then I moved to New York City. So that gave me a lot more potential
Hmm.
for luck. Uh, I, started working at an entertainment company. So that gave me more potential to get connections in the entertainment industry. Even though I was in IT, eventually I wanted to write books or TV shows or whatever.
Yeah.
So, uh, you know, you have to kind of put yourself in situations where good opportunities can find you, and you can find good opportunities. So I think that's an under. People like to say success is all about me, but it's also kind of putting yourself in a situation where you can say later, "Oh, I was at the right place at the right time." And so that's underappreciated, that part of success. I think also very important part of success is to continue it. So like I said, I was good at making the money, but not always good at keeping it.
Hmm.
So you kind of have to like keep the same mindset and hunger and passion that got you success. You have to continue that after it's never over. So you have to keep continuing that. And it doesn't mean you have to stay equally ambitious your entire life. Like maybe your success can morph into other things,
Yeah.
but you still have to be a better person, today than you were yesterday in terms of, or at least attempt in terms of like emotional health, creative health, spiritual health, even physical health, even as you get older. Like age changes things, but doing the best you can to keep improving is important. Else you start to slip, and you don't keep the money and you don't grow the money, and then you have to start from scratch again, at an older age. So uh, I think those are two important things. One is, again, increasing the potential for luck. The other is continuing to be successful after you achieve what most people think is success.
Really, really important insights, and I think a lot of people are going to take a lot from that. I think for a lot of people, that's just things that we don't really think about, and I'm really, really grateful for that perspective. There's one last question I ask every single guest, and it really encapsulates what I want to do with this podcast. I think a lot of life is unlearning more than it is learning. We have to unlearn the beliefs about ourselves, the beliefs about the world that really stop us from creating a more full and fulfilled life that we deserve to create for ourselves. So my question for you is, what belief are you currently unlearning?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because you're right. Everything is about, like unlearning is almost unlearning is a form of learning.
Yeah.
Like my biggest light bulb moments when I'm like, of course, is not when I'm learning something, it's when I'm unlearning something.
Yeah.
So for instance, one time I owned a piece of a business that I thought I was going to make a gazillion dollars on. And then I realized, oh, I don't have to make a gazillion dollars on this. I could sell this for a couple $100,000 right now and then use that money to fuel other investments that maybe I'll make a gazillion dollars on. And so I've been working so hard at trying to convert this one thing into a gazillion dollars when I just 24 hours later I had sold it and was working on other things and was much happier. So like that was an aha moment where I unlearned what I felt needed to be done with this type of business that I had.
Yeah.
And so uh I think there's lots of things I'm always unlearning, but a lot of things that I'm unlearning now are this concept that you can't learn things at a certain age, or you can't do things at a certain age. Of course, I'm not going to go be a professional bass player in my 50s, baseball player in my 50s, but I wasn't going to be a professional baseball player in my 20s either, so
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. But I think people change and your brain changes and some areas grow and some areas decline, but you can always own those changes. Like, yes, this has changed in me, but now I have this skill that I didn't have 20 years ago and other people 20 years younger don't have. And so I could run with that skill. And I think unlearning things this is hard to describe.
Yeah.
Unlearning what I previously thought about aging is really important to me right now. Like, can I play chess, in the same way that I did in 1997? The answer is no, but I could play in other ways that might be better than how I played in 1997. So this has been an important insight.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show, James. All of your links will be in the show notes. I can't express my gratitude enough for you coming on the show. Thank you.
Well, thank you for inviting me on the show, and I really appreciate it. You're for 19 years old, you're a really great interviewer. And I know I just age biased it, but it's hard to be a good interviewer. I listened to my first couple of podcasts from 10 years ago, and look, I was in my 40s then, and I was a horrible interviewer. So you're doing really good. Do you do public speaking also?
I don't. That's something I definitely want to get into.
You would probably be really good at it. Like, you should definitely figure out how you can experiment. Like, call up your old school and say you want to speak to the high school business class or whatever, and just get some practice in public speaking, and get some stories ready and be a storyteller and get people to laugh a little bit, and you'd have a lot of fun. You'd probably be really good at it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That means a lot for
No
coming from
problem.
you. Thank you.